Hello and welcome to La Coco Strangiato and welcome to Septandy 2024. Today I want to show you this interesting software I wrote about 20 years ago called Color Fog. There's a lot to discuss and this will be a multi-part series, so let's go. So what exactly is Color Fog? Well, the color part is pretty obvious, and FOG stands for File Operations GUI. And what's cooler than an acronym within an acronym? I like to consider it my Disk Basic Ease of Use project, and yes, I was using that phrase back in 2004 when I wrote the documentation. It was written to provide a quick and easy way to not only read disk directories and do basic file management, but also to manipulate the disk basic drive lookup table, which makes it easy to access both sides of your double-sided floppy drives for BASIC. So Color Fog is a modular BASIC program. And what makes it modular? There are some global variables stored around memory location 6FFF0. These variables tell the software modules things like your monitor type, palette settings, which controller you're using, and more. Any basic program that relies on these variables to work properly is a module, and identified as such with the .bas extension. .bas files should only be run from the loader or called by each other, since the loader sets up the user's environment. In addition to the global variables, there are several data modules on the disk, including an error code lookup table, stored user configuration data, and even a context-sensitive help file, which is not really fleshed out, but the framework is there. Color Fog requires a Color Computer 3 with disk extended Color Basic 1.1, at least 2 floppy drives, although a hard drive and HDB-DOS is the intended setup. As of 2023, I've been working on creating an SDC compatible version, but the version that I originally released will not install on an SDC system because the ROM is not what it expects to find. So if you download it and want to use it, you'll have to use it on a HDB-DOS system, not SDC-DOS. So after you run the loader, it basically sits at the screen waiting for you to move a joystick, which will tell it which joystick you're using. All you do is wiggle it sideways a little bit, move it to one side or the other, and it'll detect the movement, set your joystick, and finish loading the FOG module. Alright, so here we're looking at the basic Color Fog interface. You can see the mouse moving pretty smooth. Interesting fact about this is that the mouse is not put, it is actually drawn with an HDRAW statement. Wherever I click, you know, it kind of pops up a little 3D effect button, and if I click that again, a menu pops up, a context sensitive menu. So this top line here, Color Fog Generator, that's actually a disk label, and that is using basically the same format as I believe ADOS would use to name a disk. So if you look up here at these buttons, when you click a button you get this kind of 3D effect. So it reads in the directory, and then it trims the spaces and kind of interprets the file extension to give it a color and determine what context sensitive menus will pop up. So if I click 1 here, 1 is the actual FOG disk that we're running from right now. And you can see over on the right here that we have more than a page of files. So if I hit down one more time, now you can see the remaining files on the disk. Now if I click 2, I'll actually get a directory from my GoTech. If I type 0, or if I click 0, I'm back on my fog generator disk. This is basically the last image that I was on in my SDC Explorer. So at this time, color fog, I don't have any capability of manipulating which drive I'm looking at on the SDC. That is a project that I'm looking into and for a future version. But what I can do is XP. I don't think this will launch. No. I'm going to have to do a Control-Alt reset to get back into the Explorer. So you can see that's where I left off. Generate fog is my installer disk. So normally you would download the installer disk and run the install.bas to create a installed version on one of your hard drive virtual floppies. Alright, Contras is a good one here. So what you can see is rather than having a .dsk extension, we've got the D in brackets. That basically means that it's a directory with multiple disks in it. So what you do is you go to the top level, Contras, and you hit Shift M to mount the directory. Now if I hit break and dir, I've got that. Now I type run fog:1, launching the GUI. And you can see, even though we ran fog on drive 1, it's showing us the directory of drive 0, because that's what we were looking at when we launched fog. It's aware of what we're looking at, and it respects that and stays there. And I have no way to control the images on the SD in fog at this point, but I can press the button on the SDC, and that should change the disk for me. So now if I hit 0, I should get disk 2. And if I hit the button again and hit 0, I'll get disk 3. If I hit the button one more time, I should be back to disk 1. 0. And there you go. Okay, so disk 1 is also basically hardwired into the SDC. If I hit that, this is actually my fog installation disk. This is what we're running right now. Or we're looking at the files on the disk that we're actually running. So you can see the color coding is just something that I threw into the parsing routine. It doesn't take a lot of time. The thing that takes all the time is stripping the unused spaces from the file names. What are the files? Fog.bas is actually the loader file, and if you click it, you have the option, you can copy the file, move the file. If you select move, it's just like in Windows, it'll copy it to another drive and then delete this copy. So you want to be careful what you do. You can rename files, delete files, get info on files. Now this isn't really fleshed out either. If you click it, you basically see the disk information of used and unused bytes on the disk. My goal with that is actually to show the file size and the granule map of that file. It's pretty easy stuff to do, but I've just never got around to that. And actually the main fog program itself has gotten so big that I can't really keep adding to it. I need to separate some of the functions out into separate modules before I can really proceed any further. So you can see that in addition to the mouse, I can use the keyboard to navigate. If I just keep hitting the right arrow, it'll move through the files. If I use the up and down arrows, those work too. If I go down past, you can see that there's a scroll bar on this disk because there's more than one page of files. So if I click that, it goes to the top, click it again, it goes to the very top. So other files on the disk, we've got a high-res binary. That is supposedly the Tandy high-res joystick routine, but I don't use it with this software. I seem to recall hooking it up in the past and it did work, but it kind of, because you're going such finer motion, it actually kind of slows down the program, makes it feel a little less responsive than the mouse actually feels right now. So these font files are fun because you can actually click on these, and now in the context sensitive menu I have the option to install. So if I click that, I now have a digital font, and it is reloading the directory for some reason. And you can see how the fonts load. These only work on the high-res graphics screen. One of these, we'll do hiragana. This hey, shout out to Dennis Kitts. He made this hiragana and katakana font for the Coco 3. So there you go, hiragana text. We'll go over here to the katakana. Give that a gander. Equally befuddling to the untrained eye. And I think this is the one that I like. Oops. So that's the basics of, just navigating around files. If I go up here and click on drive 2, that's actually my GoTech. So now it's reading that directory. And if I spin the encoder, change to a different disk and hit 2, I should get different files this time. So it works with the GoTech, it works with regular floppies. If I hit 3, that's actually a 3.5-inch floppy on the same bay as my GoTech. And that has actually got a fog installation on it that I do a little testing with. And then if I go back to drive 0, it should still be Contras. Yeah. So up here in the menu area, you've already seen how the drive buttons work. Over here we have the main menu buttons, I guess. We have a help button, cassette operations, setup, and exit. You can see the highlighted letters. Got your H, your C, your S, and X, as well as F1 kind of hidden behind the question mark. All of those are hotkeys, including the question mark, if I'm not mistaken. If I hit question mark, I get my help screen. If I hit F1, I get my help screen. If I hit H, I get my help screen. If I hit C, it asks me if I want to close fog and start Roger Schrag's tape to disk utility, which is a pretty handy utility that I just included for functionality. It's not like integrated into my GUI or anything. But I did include this with Roger Schrag's permission back around 2002. I'm going to say no, I don't want to exit fog, and I'm going to hit S because I want to show you the setup routine. Actually, I'm not going to hit S, I'm going to click the button, and if you watch the frame of this button, you get the 3D effect of clicking it. That is just one of the drawstrings, and we'll get into that in a later episode. Here inside setup, you can see that you can select the number of physical floppy drives. That includes a GoTech. And then you can select an icon for the drives that you have installed. So if I add a third drive, now it defaults to a 5 1/4 icon. I can click that, and I could select a different icon for it if I wanted to. I will just leave that at 5 1/4, and I'm going to go back to 2 since I don't have a drive hooked up there. So another neat thing on these menus, when you click on it and the menu pops up, you can use the keyboard or the mouse. So if I'm sliding my mouse to the left or joystick, it just keeps wrapping around until it can't go any further. Or you can use the keyboard, or you can actually use hotkeys. So I think if I hit 2, that works. Serial baud, this setting doesn't actually do anything, but obviously, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory if it were implemented what it would do. Monitor type, you can select RGB, composite, or mono. I wonder what happens if I select mono. It probably looks good on a monochrome monitor. And then style font, this is a default font that ColorFog will load when you launch it if you set something other than Cocoa 3.font. So down here, all these buttons are actually not accessible from the keyboard. So if you want to select a different color palette for the program, you'll have to use the mouse or joystick to come down here. And you can click on one of these and you get a little swatch of what it will look like. Blue sky is the current palette, that's the default. The gray is probably my second favorite. I'll go ahead and apply this just so you can see how it affects the look. We'll go ahead and hit save and return to fog. So when I did that, apparently it unmounts the disk that I had mounted in drive 0, but if I go back to drive 1, I do still have my fog disk. And if I go to drive 2, our GoTech is still there. Then let's say I wanted to copy 3 of these games to another disk. Let's say I want to copy all the B files. So I mentioned that you can control click, and there is one quirk about it. You have to hold control before you click the first file. So I'm holding control now, and I'm going to click Berserk. That tells me I've got 1 file selected. I'm going to click bumpers and bust out. So now I've got 3 files selected. And if I hit list, it shows me which files I have. Click the button again, get out of that list. I still have those 3 files selected. And if I actually click this button, now I can create a group which will actually create a file on the disk. And this is buggy right now. It doesn't work on SDC at all. It worked on HDB-DOS. So if you have HDB-DOS, this file group can actually be used, like you can create this group on this disk and then move it to a different disk and add more files to it, and then move it to another disk and add more files to it, and then move it to another disk, and basically those become aliases to the existing files on the disks that they're actually on. That's something that I haven't actually fully tested, but in theory it should work on HDB-DOS only. Additionally, I could tell it copy, and it's going to let me copy the 3 files to which drive. If I hit HD, it would ask me for a drive number like HDB-DOS does. I'm just going to hit escape because I don't actually want to copy these right now. But if I picked a drive, it would literally just copy those files one after another to the destination that I select. Now if I just want to start over, I can just click on a file, and that gets rid of the list in memory. And then I control click, let's say I wanted to switch to the C's, control click Canyon, control click Catchem. Now I've got the 2 C files selected, and if I list them, you got that. So the other question, can you launch these programs from within ColorFob? And the correct answer is sometimes. Usually binary executable files will actually load and execute. Sometimes they crash. If they do crash, what happens is you'll reset the computer and you'll be back at the prompt, and you can immediately just load that file because you're still in the same disk. But let's just try one here. Let's try Canyon Climber. Execute. So it's loading from the GoTech. And it executed. And it looks terrible because of the palette set, I guess. Let's see if this does anything. That's a little better. Oh, jerk. There you go. $12. So you can see it starts back up, goes into our gray palette that we loaded. Now we have our contrast disk again for some reason. Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to switch to disk 1. So we'll go back to setup and switch back to our blue sky color theme. Save. Yes. I'm not sure what's up with that. The image is still mounted. There might be an error in the setup program when it exits and goes back to fog. I'll look into that someday. Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up for this video. Again, next video I will be going over the installer program itself, even though that will be eliminated in future versions if and when those come out. Basically, my plan is to go through kind of the code that I use to do certain functions like the modular menus and things like that, you know. Maybe give you some ideas for your own software, even give you some code if you need it. The plan is to help people with their own coding ideas, not just, you know, say look what I did, but look what you can do. Anyway, that's going to do it for now. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, click that button. If you have questions about what you'd like to see in upcoming episodes, if you have questions about how I did things in Color Fog, or maybe you want to help me add functionality to FujiNet or SDC, you know, hit me up in the comments or on the Color Computer Discord, and let's see what we can do with this kind of stuff. You know, it's what we're all here for. Thanks for watching, and remember to Cocoa every day. Cheers.